Welcome to my channel, USA Battle Zone. Thank you for being here. Today's story is one that still shakes me every time I tell it. It's emotional, cinematic, and based on the kind of quiet heroism most people never hear about. So lean in, turn the volume up, and let me take you into the heart of a moment that changed an entire unit forever. The sun had barely broken over the ridgeline when Specialist Elena Marrow stepped out into the dust-gray morning. She'd always been the first one up, the first one checking gear, the first one walking the perimeter whenever the rest of the platoon moved slowly from their bunks. Even in the half-light, even with the desert wind carving lines into her cheeks, she carried that calm smile that made everyone else breathe easier. To most, she was just another soldier lost in the endless churn of uniforms and call signs. But inside that unit, Unit Kilo Sierra, she was the pulse. The reason people stayed grounded. The reason people kept pushing. That morning, she tied her hair back, tucked the last strand into her helmet, and made her way toward the motor pool. She had been assigned to check a transport vehicle that had been acting up the night before. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous, but no one knew how fast everything would unravel. The tension had been building for days. You could feel it, like electricity crawling through the air, everyone waiting for orders that never made sense and rules that changed every hour. Some soldiers were breaking under the pressure. Some were snapping, and some, like Sergeant Darren Lokes, had already crossed a line long before that morning came. Lokes had always carried a storm inside him. Elena had told the lieutenant more than once that something felt wrong around him, his temper, his glare, the way he barked orders just a little too harshly. But back then, during that hectic deployment, warnings were overlooked. There were bigger fires to put out. Or so they thought. Elena spotted him near the vehicles before he spotted her. He was pacing, muttering to himself, hands shaking with a restless anger she couldn't place. She slowed her steps. She always approached tense people like she approached fraying wires, carefully, patiently. "Morning, Sergeant," she said softly. He turned sharply. "You weren't authorized to be here yet. I'm just starting my check on Bravo 7. I said later." She took a breath. "Sir." With respect, the lieutenant cleared. That was all it took. Lokes stepped forward, chest heaving, eyes burning with something that didn't belong on a soldier's face. A few other troops nearby froze. They all knew that look. Elena didn't back down. She never did. She wasn't afraid of him, but maybe she should have been. "Sergeant," she said carefully. "You're too agitated. Let's take a minute. Just breathe. Come on. Let's talk to the LT together." Lokes snapped. He shoved her first. Hard. The kind of shove meant to make a point. She stumbled back but held her ground. "Sergeant, stop." Before anyone could move, before anyone could call out for help, he lashed out and kicked her, right in the side of the head. The crack of impact echoed across the motor yard like a gunshot. Elena collapsed. Silence swallowed the world for a second. Then chaos erupted. "Medic, get him away from her. Marrow, stay with us." Soldiers rushed to her, forming a protective circle. Others wrestled Lokes to the ground. His eyes were wild, like he didn't even understand what he'd just done. He kept shouting that she had disrespected him, that she had undermined his authority. But no one else was listening. Elena lay still, eyes half open, consciousness fading in and out. A medic dropped to their knees beside her, hands trembling as they checked her pulse. Checked her breathing, whispered her name again and again. "Come on, Marrow. You hear me. Stay awake. You stay with me." Her lips moved. Barely. I'm here." Those were the last words she managed before everything went dark. The medics rushed her toward the infirmary. Word spread like wildfire. The unit went silent. An eerie, heavy silence that didn't feel like fear but like something deeper, something heavier. Something final. For an hour, no one knew what was happening inside that medical tent. Soldiers stood outside, pacing in the dust, whispering prayers, clenching helmets in their fists. Some of them were crying openly. Some were staring at nothing at all. And then, everything changed. 3 black vehicles rolled through the base gates. 3, all with flags, all carrying stars. Generals don't show up unannounced. Not to small units, not without warning. But that day, minutes after Elena's collapse, they did. The entire base froze as the three generals stepped out, their faces unreadable beneath their caps. Officers scrambled toward them. Runners sprinted between buildings. Radios buzzed with frantic voices. No one knew who had called them. No one knew how they got there so fast. But later, people would learn the truth. Someone in that unit had sent a report the moment Elena hit the ground. Someone had given the generals a full breakdown of everything that had been going wrong for weeks. Someone had told them it was only a matter of time before someone got hurt. And now someone had. The generals walked directly into the command building without a word. For 30 minutes, no one moved. Then the shouting started. It wasn't normal shouting. It was the kind of shouting that pierced doors and rattled windows. The kind that meant leaders were being torn apart piece by piece. The kind that meant the truth was spilling out faster than anyone could contain it. And then, the doors opened. The generals came out with steel in their eyes. Behind them, the commander of the unit followed, pale and shaken. Another officer was escorted out by MPs. And then another. And then Sergeant Lokes, handcuffed, silent, dragged toward the vehicles. The generals walked past the stunned formation of soldiers and spoke only 2 words. Shut it. Just like that, Unit Kilo Sierra was dissolved that very afternoon. Orders were distributed. Soldiers were reassigned. Some were sent home. Others absorbed into different units. The motor pool closed. The barracks emptied. Files were sealed. Equipment was boxed and trucked away. It happened so fast it didn't feel real. The only thing anyone cared about was Elena. Hours later, one of the medics stepped out of the tent, face streaked with sweat and exhaustion. She's stable. The crowd that had gathered outside the medical tent broke down, some laughing, some hugging, some crying into their hands. The relief was so powerful it physically shook people. Inside the tent, Elena lay on a cot with monitors gently beeping around her. When she opened her eyes again, the medic smiled through tears. You scared us, they whispered. Elena tried to speak, but her throat was sore. She swallowed and tried again. What happened? The medic sat beside her, breathing out slowly. You stood up for the wrong person on the wrong day, they said quietly. But because of you, this whole place got cleaned out. She blinked, confused. What do you mean? The medic leaned in. Elena, 3 generals shut down the whole unit. They're rebuilding it from the ground up. All because of what happened to you. Her breath caught. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to feel. She only stared at the ceiling for a long moment, trying to understand the weight of what had changed. In the days that followed, soldiers from all over the base visited her. Some she barely knew. Some had fought beside her for years. They brought cards, flowers, stories, apologies, gratitude. One soldier, Miller, walked in with shaking hands. I should have stepped in sooner, he whispered. We all should have. Elena turned her head slowly. You did. You all did. But Miller bit back tears. Not soon enough. Another soldier, Reyes, sat at her bedside for an hour without speaking, just holding her hand gently like something fragile. You saved us, Reyes said finally. Not just today. All those days you warned us something was wrong. We just didn't listen in time. Elena didn't see herself as a hero. She saw herself as a soldier who had tried to help someone lost in their own storm. But sometimes, trying to help meant stepping straight into the fire. Weeks passed before she could walk without dizziness. Months before she returned to duty. But when she did, she found a new unit waiting for her. One rebuilt on accountability, respect, and the belief that no voice should ever be ignored again. And when she stepped into that new unit, the soldiers stood at attention, not because she outranked them, not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. Because she had changed everything. Her story spread quietly, shared in whispers, passed along in mess halls, repeated on long convoys and sleepless nights. Soldiers said her courage had brought justice where it hadn't existed before. They said she was the reason people finally spoke up, finally demanded better. And that mattered. That meant something. Years later, Elena would still hear from people who had served in Kilo Sierra before it was shut down. They would write letters or send messages. You saved me from a broken system. Because of you, I found my voice. Thank you for standing up when the rest of us didn't know how. And every time, Elena would close her eyes and think of that morning. The dust, the silence, the crack that changed her life. She didn't want to be remembered for what happened to her. She wanted to be remembered for what happened after. The rebuilding, the reckoning, the courage that spread across an entire base like wildfire because one specialist with a calm smile refused to accept cruelty as normal. She wanted people to remember that change begins with one voice. One stand. One moment when silence breaks. And now, you know her story too. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something deep in your chest, then please, like, comment, and subscribe to USA Battle Zone.